Hey, JD here. Welcome to the Mead House. You know, over the past several years, we've brought you over 150 episodes of mead-making education, information, and entertainment. More than 100 guests have stopped by the Mead House, professional mead makers, medal-winning home mead makers, competition organizers, experts on yeast and honey, and brewers just like you and me have all visited to share their knowledge. Hey, the Mead House is produced for home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. You can help support the Mead House by joining the Mead House Keyholder Club on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for the Mead House. There's also a link in the show notes. For as little as $2 a month, you can become a keyholder. We've teamed up with some great companies to provide thank you gifts for your support. So get on over to Patreon, join the Mead House Keyholder Club, and get your own set of keys to the Mead House. You can listen to the Mead House podcast with your favorite player, and be sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes or your favorite listening venue. The Mead House, mead-making entertainment you just don't want to miss. Hey, welcome to the Mead House, and thanks for listening to episode number 199. You know, I was just waxing the tractor when Jeff and Ryan pulled up to get ready for the show, and I'll probably have to feed the parakeet after they leave. But hey, I'm JD Webb, and you are at the Mead House for the next 90 minutes. Hey, the next show you hear may be from someplace between Gallup, New Mexico, and some more North Carolina, as the wife and I head off next week on our cross-country trip. So stay tuned. Hey, you know where you can find the Mead House? It's really simple. On the front page of themeadhouse.com. You can find us at iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iHeart, YouTube, Amazon Music, and just a whole other bunch of other places. All listed again there at the front page on the website, themeadhouse.com. In this episode, you know, we've had quite a bit of good times with kind of doing the whole show on Social Club. We kind of get a kick out of it, and I think our listeners do too. So we're going to dedicate show number 199, the entire night, to all of our listeners out there in mead making and brewing world, and a whole night of Social Club. So that's kind of where we're at tonight. But hey, all that and more here at the Mead House. Thanks to all the Mead House key holders who help keep the Mead House podcast free. You know, you can become a Mead House key holder. It's real simple. And you can support the show for as little as $2 a month. We've got some great thank you gifts to send out to you, plus a listing of keyholder-only content. Get on over to patreon.com, search for the Mead House, or you can click on the link in the show notes to join that elite club. Hey, what are we drinking tonight, guys? I picked up a new whiskey. Yeah, it's not a bourbon. It's a Kentucky whiskey. It's called Uncle Nearest. Now, they make 2 blends, okay? And one is 1884 and one is 1856. I highly recommend 1856. 1884 is okay. It tastes like a rather young whiskey. You get a lot of raw American oak flavor. Not that it's a bad thing. Some people kind of enjoy that. Now, we're not talking like plywood taste or anything like that. It's a very well-rounded out whiskey. But it's got a lot of that kind of raw oak flavor. Lots of barrel char, and you know, it's a fairly decent whiskey. Now, I rather prefer the 1856. Now, this one I think is really something special. It's a blend of premium aged whiskeys between 8 and 14 years. On the nose, it's you get baled hay, like dried grass, maybe some pumpkin seed with some ripe stone fruit like apricot and peach comes through pretty good. Caramel corn, a real light, sweet maple aroma. And then on the tongue, it's really bold and spicy up front. Lots of barrel char. And you really, that maple really starts to kick in about mid-palate. Lots of caramel flavors, a little bit of vanilla kicks in, that barrel char shines through, and it's a really long finish. And I really like this stuff. It's called Uncle Nearest, and there's a story behind it. If you go to Uncle Nearest, I think it's unclenearest.com, if I'm not mistaken. You can Google it. You know how to find it. But quite a story out there about Uncle Nearest. And, some pretty good reading. In my other fist, I'm doing a mead. JD drinks a mead on the Mead House. This one is one that I've had in the barrel, per se. It's been in a keg on wood for quite some time now. This is that, and I've had this on the show before. This is that kind of a semi-sweet, little less than semi-sweet traditional, just straight honey, yeast, and water, and then aged on some American oak first for about, probably 3 months. And then I pulled that out and then sunk in some Hungarian oak and let it sit on that for, a good 3-4 months. And, wow, what a flavor. I get that wood smell. I get more of a Hungarian oak smell on the nose. Lots of that, lots of honey aroma. Wow. Ooh. There's I don't know where this vanilla is coming from. This may be a question I throw into the mix, Jeff. But I'm getting, I swear, this is just straight old wildflower honey, yeast, and water. Okay, there is no vanilla whatsoever. Now the vanilla might be coming from the American oak. I'm hoping, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, you can definitely get some vanilla from American oak, and depending on the char level too, that can throw more or less vanilla. So that's, if you didn't put any vanilla in the first place, that's probably where you're getting that vanilla character from.
Yeah, I mean it's really good. I like it. It's just sweet enough for my tongue, but not so sweet that you can drink a second glass of this with no problem. Oh, my wife even likes it, and she's been bugging me to get it bottled up so she can give it away. It's like, okay, if I do that, then there won't be any left for me, right? So I keep it in a keg, right?
Right.
So anyway, Jeff, what's in your cup tonight?
Tonight I am drinking 2 different meads, and at least one of them is going to be good.
At least one.
In my first glass here, I have a. This is one that I made, and you guys may remember the Stinger Mead. I tried to make a take on that. This is a basswood traditional that I wasn't very pleased with the results. It didn't come out quite the same way that I wanted it to. So rather than just bottling up like a 6-gallon batch of a subpar mead, what I decided to do was split it into a bunch of 1-gallon batches and then backsweeten it with different honeys just to play around with the idea of backsweeting. That turned into a really informative experiment because, I used maybe 6 ounces for a gallon of different honeys and got wildly different meads out of it. This was one that I didn't have an extra honey for. I actually let this one age on some oak. And I want to say it was a French oak. I'm not sure exactly what char level it was. And this is kind of one of those back of the closet meats that I just pulled out at the last moment because even those are running thin at this point. And I'm wishing I had more oak on this, honestly. It seems it might. I don't know how old this was. It's probably about 2 years old. I don't think oak fades that badly. But I just don't get very much of it. It's a little bit of a whiskey flavor, a little bit of a tannic note. The mead itself is fairly dry. It's got a little crisp finish to it. It comes off just kind of bland and not very interesting, unfortunately. So, I wish I had either let the oak sit for a while longer or maybe back sweetened it as well, or hell, maybe even carbonated it. I could have done more with this, and it is what it is now, but this is all stuff for future endeavors, just to make something better next time.
Sounds good.
In my second glass, I've got some Bramble from Sap House.
Oh.
This is the black maple. This is the good one.
Yeah.
You Get a lot of that blackberry on the nose, a little bit of honey. It's very pleasantly tart. The blackberry flavor is right up front. I get a little bit of that maple, like maybe towards the mid to late palate. It's not terribly pronounced, not cloyingly sweet. This is a very nice mead. It's just very well balanced. Yeah, I know. This is real good. You know, I know, JD, you were singing the praises of this one an episode or two back, so wholeheartedly concur. This is real nice.
Yeah, you know, for a blackberry mead, I mean, I've had tons of blackberry meads, and I'm telling you, that to me tastes like a bowl of blackberries. I mean, it's just unbelievable how you know, Ash is able to pull that blackberry flavor out without introducing a whole lot of sweetness. You know, I mean, I think that's the, you know, I think a lot of people think in order to make it taste like a particular fruit, you got to add a lot of sugar. You know what I mean, or make it really sweet.
Right. You either need fruit or a lot of honey to sweeten it back up, and that getting the balance right is just so key to having something that you can enjoy more than one glass of. I think.
Absolutely. You know, and back to your other mead that you're drinking, your project. You know, the oaking thing. One thing that I have found difficult in the past is to get the tannin and the oak level right, because you know, at times I have oaked things and you know, and the finish on it is really dry, and it's that tannin dryness that you feel. You know, that you taste, and
the
but
it's definitely that perception of dryness.
Yeah, and you know, I think getting the right amount of oak flavor that you want, and balancing that with the proper amount of tannin, that can be a trick too, I think, sometimes.
Well, what I would say for this that I am pleasantly surprised with, even though I wanted more oak, the body is definitely right there. I know this was a very kind of flabby and one note uninteresting mead in the first place, which is why I decided to split it like I did. Mm-hmm. And the oak definitely gave more. I just wish there was more to it. You know?
Yeah.
I was thinking it could be better.
Gotcha. Ryan, what did you put in your glass tonight?
Well, I put in my glass tonight a Braggot. Surprise, right, guys?
Surprise, yeah.
I am drinking a Braggot that I made. You know, it's getting... we're hotter out, you know, and getting hotter out, you know, typically means that I'm a lot busier and I have less time to do stuff. Mm-hmm. And so my brewing has got to get quick. You know, sometimes I got to do stuff really quickly. And I am drinking a Braggot that I made with a mix from our friends at Brew Firm. And so far, here's what it is. It's the Beastly Belge. The Beastly Belge. This is a true Belgian ale, a refreshing, slightly dry, pale amber beer with a refined bitterness, true malt undertones, and a soft finish. Enjoyable any time of year. This is a true classic. Okay, so this is supposed to make 3 gallons, you know, on its own.
Right.
The kit, 3-gallon kit. Again, they call these no-boil kits. So I just dump the canister into the fermenter. I put in 3 pounds of honey, you know, and filled it up with just, you know, bottled water to, you know, like big bottle of water to 5 gallons, and threw in the yeast. And I think it came with like a Belgian yeast or something, and let it go. And that was it. I mean, it doesn't get any faster than that. That's like, you know, a wine kit type thing. And man, this is probably my favorite Braggot from Brew Firm so far.
Wow.
It drinks like a Belgian, like, you know, it says a Belgian pale amber. It's got all the great qualities of a maybe a pale or a single, and it's about 6%, little maybe 6.5%, and just absolutely delicious. It's got the great, Belgian character, a little bit of bitterness, just, nice body. Just really, really, really good. Just a fantastic beer. So I really like this one. And again, it didn't take anything just to throw it together. So very pleased with this one, and will likely be making it again.
You said that's one of the mixes out of Brew Firm, right?
Yeah, so this is out of Brew Firm. They do all the Belgian kits, and this is the Beastly Belge, and it's just phenomenal.
We had okay, so I got a really good excuse because I'm old, but I can't remember his name. How embarrassing. He was on the show here. It's been, I don't know, 8-10 episodes ago from Brew Firm. And what a fantastic show. I mean, if one of you guys can want to look it up real quick. I don't remember what episode it was, but it was a really interesting show. And Ryan and I both bought several of his products. I haven't brewed mine yet, Ryan. I'm going to wait until I get back from our trip. I didn't want to start anything, knowing I wouldn't be here to tend to it, for a month. So I'm going to wait and hold off until we return from our trip. But I'm getting anxious now because this is the second time now that you've talked about brewing one of these mixes out of Brew Firm. These are no boil things, right?
Right.
Absolutely. You just throw this thing in the hopper with some water and whoop it up, add your yeast, and off you go. Okay, so that's the name of the game with these Brew Firm mixes. So, and of course the braggot thing. Of course, we're going to replace the sugar with the honey. And Ryan, like I said, this is the second time now that you've been on the show, really kind of highlighting Brew Firm's product in a braggot format. So I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So in the second cup.
In the second cup, if I get to a second cup, I'll probably have a second one.
There you go. There you go. Sounds good.
A Bart Ballas from Brew Firm that we talked to.
There you go. Yes. And boy, what a show. I mean, I don't remember what episode it was, but I tell you, I think he's really got something going there. And for a hobbyist, if you want to just throw something together on a weekend real quick, that seems like the way to go. And if you're, just want to do some small batch, they're basically 3-gallon mixes. You can amp it up a little bit if you want by adding a little bit more of this or that. But, I think a 3-gallon mix is a good place to start. Yeah. I mean, and they even make small kegs that you can even, I've got a keg here that's it's about 3 gallons. In fact, I think it is a 3-gallon keg. That will work nicely. So, I mean, there's even kegs out there that you can buy. If you wanted to go that route, or of course, you can always bottle it too at that point. But
incident, that was episode 181, and yeah, I did not get any Brew Firm yet, but I'm going to be looking at them as soon as we get moved, because I am already hiding honey from my wife that she doesn't know I bought, because we're trying to get out of here, not get more stuff.
Yeah.
But once we finally get moved, it's going to be time for summer parties, because we can do that again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to need something to fill up those kegs fast, man.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, we should probably get him back on the show again, maybe after we get back from our trip and, talk to him again. I just think it's an outstanding product. Now, again, I haven't brewed it yet, so I can't tell by experience, but I've listened to Ryan twice now go on and on about it. So, I'm kind of anxious, actually. Want to come back and throw one in the hopper and get it rolling. So, but good stuff, guys. Like I said at the top of the show, we do this every once in a while, and the social club here at the Mead House is kind of special to us. This is where we try to tackle some questions from our listeners with no formal expertise other than what we've experienced in our own brew house. And that kind of says a lot because each one of us, the three of us, come to the show with varying degrees of, I don't know if I call it expertise, but knowledge maybe, maybe expertise. We're all hobbyist type brewers. Ryan seems to push the envelope a little more than I do. Jeff is more or less the scientist of the group. And me, I just like brewing good stuff. I find something I like and I just keep brewing it. Like my cider. I haven't changed up my cider recipe in, I don't know since I started actually. I had a couple of renditions that I made and finally settled on one. That's the one I keep. And it's a real simple recipe. Sometimes simple is better. But again, we come to the show with different experiences in our own brew houses. So this is how we tackle these questions as they come about. So one of us, or both of us, or two of us, or three of us, might run into the same issue, the same problem. At least we can talk about it and base our answers and whatnot off of our own experience. So with that, Ryan, you got one right at the top. Why don't you explain to us?
Yeah, why don't we start with me this time? I don't mind being the example here. Sometimes when you brew a long time, you start to develop a feel. You just have a feeling of where some of your batches are, and about how they're chugging along. How long something should take, or just how it tastes or looks or smells or things like that. And sometimes you're wrong. And, we always talk about, you should follow good processes, good procedures, do your, use your hydrometer, and make that make that one of your best friend tools, and really kind of go through a disciplined process. Well, I'll raise my hand here and say I did not go through a disciplined process. I had a feeling that a batch was where I thought it was. Tasted it. It tasted about right, and bottled it up. I bottle conditioned it. I was gonna have a sparkling mead, just kind of like I typically do. Well, a couple of weeks go by. I thought, it's time to taste one. Out of the now it's carbonated. You ever seen those videos where somebody puts a Mentos in a Coke bottle?
Yeah.
Oh.
So that happened when I opened up the bottle, and I thought, that's interesting.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
maybe it was just that one. So I opened up another one, and the same thing happened. I'm like, okay, I got some gushers here. Now these aren't, they don't have so much pressure in them that the bottles are shattering inside the cases. Like bottle bombs. If you've ever had that happen.
Oh yeah.
But they are gushers. So I wouldn't call them bottle bombs. I'd call them gushers. So using myself here, I got, again, happy to raise my hand when I make mistakes myself. But what would you tell somebody, guys? Because maybe this happened to somebody else out in Mead House Nation, listener land. What would you tell somebody if they bottled up a batch and so they've got 2 cases, roughly 2 cases of bottles that are gushers, and what would you tell them? How would you tell them to deal with it? What would you tell them to do? Jeff, why don't you start? I want to start off with you.
Man, that's hard luck, buddy. So my first thought when I hear that you got 2 cases of gushers is that they're gushers now, but how stable are they as gushers? Is this a case of they're gushers now, and in another month they're going to be bottle bombs? My level of trust, it could be a bottle bomb, is real low. I hate to say it, but part of me says either pop those tops and get rid of it, or try and let the pressure off real gentle. I don't know if there's a good way to do that. I don't think there is, not that I've heard of anyway. But that seems like a real gamble to hold on to that any longer than you absolutely have to.
How about put on a wetsuit? When you open one up, just put on a wetsuit. Hold an umbrella. Freeze distill comes to my mind. But I don't know. I mean, these things are already, probably got 400 pounds per square inch pressure inside the bottle already. How would that work in a freezer, I wonder? But I wonder if you, super chilled it down, if that would have any effect. I don't know that it would, because 40 pounds is 40 pounds at any temperature, right? I think. I don't know. Well, I'm not a scientist, so.
This is... I would not advise to freezing, because even with the alcohol content, if you actually get to a freezing temperature, the water will expand as it crystallizes. However, if physics comes to mind correctly, and you have a certain volume in a certain enclosed space at a certain temperature, you can, at a certain volume, certain pressure, certain temperature, reduce the temperature, you should also reduce the pressure. So if you got it close to freezing, it might tone down a little bit, but I'm assuming we're talking 12-ounce bottles. I don't know that that's going to really cut it. It might make it a little less explosive to open up in the first place, but if you got a gusher, I think you got a gusher at any temperature.
The only, I mean, okay. So here's a more logical, maybe a more logical answer here, Ryan. Maybe get a large, clean, sanitized tub, and just start opening bottles and just let them gusher into this tub, and try to salvage and rebottle. But at this point, you would probably be more. It may be more worth it to put it in a keg or a small growler that you could pressurize and carb up that way. By the time you take the top off and it releases its pressure and gushes out everywhere, it's going to blow off most of its CO2 at that point anyway, I think. So what you're going to wind up with is something that's going to be either not as carbonated or not carbonated at all. And I mean, you can recarbonate it. I've done that before, with a simple Pepsi bottle, and a little gizmo attachment that you put on there and hook up to your tank. But I like my first one. Put on a wetsuit, I guess. I don't know. Use them as a prank. Give them to people you don't like. I guess. I don't know.
What I would caution with opening stuff up and trying to reuse it again, though, is that you're also exposing it to a lot of oxygen. So
true.
I mean, depending on alcohol content, you might be making some tasty vinegar or sherry mead or something like that instead of actually making something salvageable as far as a beverage you want to consume goes.
Well, unless Ryan's got a hidden answer here somewhere. This is a trick question somewhere. Ryan, what would you do?
It's not a trick question. I will tell you guys a couple of things. Number one, I did chill one down to as close to freezing as I could get, and opened it thinking, if you open a champagne bottle warm, you get a much different pop than if you open a champagne bottle well chilled. Yeah. So I thought, okay, let's try that. That Mentos thing I was telling you about, So basically, now it's just ice doing the same thing, same level of,
Yeah.
gusherness, but it was, just kind of like slushy coming out of there. So, again, very much still that that level of carbonation. Now, what we did have a pro on the show at one point, and I don't want to say somebody, and unless it was somebody, say it was one pro and it was a different pro, but they said that they ended up doing that. They had like a case of cans, or I think it was cans of mead that went out that were exploding on the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to recall all of them, and they opened all of them, and I think they said they put them back in a bright tank or something, and had to, I don't know, I think they said they salvaged it, but like thousands of cans they had to recall and open.
Yeah.
So what I think I'm gonna try to do is like JD said, I'm gonna take a sanitized bucket. I'm gonna try to open all of these things in and get as much as I can in there, and then I'm gonna add some fruit. I think I've got some frozen cherries, and let them sit on some frozen cherries for two reasons. Number one, to get some more fermentation kind of going, get add a little more sugar there,
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of, I've done that to protect it a little bit. If it ferments a little more, it's not oxidizing quite as bad. And then the second thing is kind of like if you talk to beer brewers and they ever have a bad batch, the old joke is just dry hop it, man. Just dry it. Doesn't matter how bad it is. Just dry hop it and it'll be fine. And so with this case, let's say I do get a little bit of oxidation in there, a little bit of off flavor from doing this. I think just kind of socking it with this extra dose of cherries is going to help mask a little bit of a flaw. Now, I realize here I'm not trying to win, some national award or something with it. I'm just trying to make it a little more salvageable.
Sure.
But I figure I might try something like that and just see what happens and go from there. So that's what I'm going to try. I'll let you know how it goes, but we'll see. It's just, and again, that's my fault. I'll raise my hand on what happened there and just need to use your hydrometer. Use your hydrometer, guys, and don't worry about. Don't try to necessarily cut those small corners.
My only other piece of advice would be to Ryan, put a post-it note on that recipe. Don't bottle too early.
Yeah, don't bottle too early.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the just dry hop it, because I swear I've heard people say, this batch didn't come out too well. Let's just put some fruit on it. We'll make a fruit beer. It'll be fine.
Oh my God! Yeah, starting out with a bang here at the Mead House as we keep rolling on here. Well, good stuff, Ryan. I think you got a good idea there. To be honest with you, I think, and that was my suggestion, wasn't it? Dump it all in a sanitized tub and start over. As long as you don't add any more yeast, I think it's a good idea to add some fruit. If you can get the fermentation started again, hey, what the heck, But anyway, rolling on here, this next one, another interesting one here, options for a silky mouthfeel. So the question is, I'd like to create a creamy, silky feel comparable to milk without utilizing lactose. I read that oatmeal and to a lesser degree bananas can help accomplish this. Are there any other options? Thanks. Yes, bananas will create that silky kind of mouthfeel. I'm not quite sure why he doesn't want to use lactose. That does create kind of a creamy mouthfeel as well. I don't know why he's opposed to using lactose, Jeff. That would be my first option.
Maybe lactose intolerant or something like that.
No, that could be, yeah. How do you feel about oatmeal?
Oatmeal is another one that gives it I don't know if I would call it silky, but it's definitely like a thicker, creamy consistency feeling. So using flaked oats, like basic Quaker oatmeal kind of you get in the can, or you get flaked oats from your homebrew store. Some of those could work. I don't know if they would work as well as lactose would, but it's certainly an option. It's certainly worth trying.
I'm a little lost with his, with his description early on here. It says options for a silky mouthfeel. Now, I don't necessarily find milk to be silky.
That's true.
Maybe cream, but not milk. I find milk to be milky, I guess, creamy.
Yeah. The only other thing I can think of and this is really out of left field, but if I recall right, we had was it Justin from Monk's Mead on, and he was talking about using aquafaba, the water from chickpeas.
Oh, there you go.
And adding some like body and some mouthfeel for that. That could be worth trying as well.
Yeah, and I've used bananas in one of my port meads. That definitely creates a very smooth and silky mouthfeel, creamy type mouthfeel, Ryan. So I know bananas definitely work. What would be your suggestion?
Yeah, we don't know what he means by silky. If he means just a fuller mouthfeel, or if he means a specific consistency.
Yeah.
But I would say also that if you're gonna bulk up mouthfeel, maltodextrin can bulk up the mouthfeel. And oak can bulk up a mouthfeel. Now, nobody's going to say, "Oh, this is silky oaky," but it can help do that. I think bananas are interesting. I think the oatmeal definitely adds a creaminess, and I tried something. It's still an experimental phase, but we'll see. You guys ever seen the Chia Water that's out there? People, they soak like chia seeds in water and drink the water, or I think you can just buy bottles of Chia Water at like the health food store.
No.
Well, I wasn't expecting you, JD, but
so if it doesn't come with a bourbon label on it, probably not.
Yeah. So chia seeds, when you soak them in water, depending on how much water, they kind of turn to a really, really thick consistency. Almost like a Jell-O. Like if you want to make a vegan egg substitute, one of the ways that you can do that is you take like a scoop of chia seeds and a little dish of water, and you let it sit, and it gets to that consistency, of that thickness. Now, I'm not saying you do that thickness, but if you were to soak some chia seeds in water and then use that water, you may, I don't know how it ferment exactly, but you might, I think it's along the same way that aquafaba, in that you would potentially pick up some really nice mouthfeel. And so I haven't tried it, yet, but it's kind of something I wanted to think a little bit about. So it's an experimental idea, but might be worth something.
You talking chia seeds, like on those little chia, like those little donkeys and horses and stuff you find in like little stores and whatnot, where you dunk it in the water and the green grass grows out all over it. That chia seed,
right? But these are chia seeds that
I didn't know they were edible.
I don't think they would sprout. The ones at the health food store, I don't think they would sprout for you. Oh. But they're one of these superfoods. These newfangled superfoods.
Oh, that'd be out of my realm.
Yeah. Vitamins and fiber and good stuff like that, apparently.
Superfood to me comes in a bottle. If it doesn't say bourbon on it or tequila, it's not a superfood. Anyway, go on.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. Oh my God. Geez. How do we get from lactose to chia seeds? Okay. So, I hope somebody got something out of that. Anyway, next one up here. This is going to be kind of a long one, guys. Mead has been in secondary for about 6 months, but isn't very clear. What are my options? I have made a blueberry mead once before that I split into 2 batches. I bottled half after about 3 months. The other half is still in secondary for about 10 months now. I have a cherry mead that has been hanging out. I hope you guys are taking notes. I have a cherry mead that has been hanging out in a glass carboy for about 6 months. Both meads are not very clear at this point, and I'd like to get them to be a bit more transparent. The half batch I bottled was okay, definitely not bursting with flavor or anything. Pretty much tasted like a lower ABV dry wine with some subtle blueberry flavors. That may not be a bad thing.
No.
Not anything to write home about, and I was hoping to improve on that. Should I re-rack the meads, cold crash, re-rack, and cold crash? Should I add gelatin or something of the sort to clarify? Bottle and let rest for another few months, or should not worry about it and let them ride until I feel like bottling? There's a lot there to unpack. Jeff, I'm going to go to you first because we've talked about this, I don't know how many times on the show, about clearing meads, numerous ways to do that, and he's pretty much run through the gamut here on it. So take your shot.
Man, Peter would skin us if we talked about all the different ways you could skin this cat. So my first question here is, did you use pectinase, pectic enzyme? How much? And did you try a second round? That would be my first go, because both of these are fruit meads.
Yeah.
Blueberry cherries, I don't know if they are super high in pectin. I know some fruits are, some fruits aren't. I would try another round of pectinase first to help clear some of that haze, especially if it's been sitting for like 6 to 10 months. It seems like there's something in suspension there that you're having trouble getting rid of. You could, beyond that, try cold crashing. If you've got a refrigerator or freezer that is capable of holding something that big, that's not a luxury everybody has. The next thing I would try, though, dual fine or super clear, whatever you call it. Dual fine is the current label, I think. The 2-part finding agent has worked wonders for me as far as getting things nice and clear, and cannot recommend it enough.
Yeah. Ryan, the old method that we used to read about all the time in the forums, was rack and re-rack again, and then re-rack that rack, and then rack it again and re-rack. Until the point where it just, I'm not sure what you wound up with, but at that point it would be crystal clear, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple things to think about in there. And, the old processes, have been hacked, so to speak. So let's talk about the typical way that somebody was told to make a beer in the past. Okay, you mix up your beer, you mix up your wort, you ferment it, then you rack it into secondary, and then after secondary, you go into your bottling bucket and you bottle or keg. So you got primary fermentation, secondary fermentation, bottling bucket, that kind of thing. Well, and mead too. People were told, okay, you rack it, and wine. Wine was a lot like mead.
Mm-hmm.
And the process was, okay, you ferment, your primary, then you go secondary, then you might go to tertiary, then you might, you go into your again, and age it, and this kind of thing. And when you do that, every single time that you rack, you have risk. You have risk of exposing it to oxygen, bugs, different like Brettanomyces,
Sure.
things like that if you didn't want them in there, and or other things, and causing adverse reactions. So the more times you do that, the more chances you get it. I'll go back to beer for a minute. There, unless you're doing, some kind of monster barley wine or, chocolate pistachio, frosting stout, with all kinds of adjuncts in it, the vast majority of beer kits and beer guys are going to say, like, you go right from primary into your bottling bucket, or your keg. There's no reason for you to have to do a secondary anymore. And part of that is the risk reward isn't there. Anything you might get by getting it off the True or the lease is not worth the risk of the contamination that can happen. So, and by the way, some people. So now what you've got to do is some people say, oh, I don't want to use dual fine. Well, I don't want to use super clear. Well, I don't want to use gelatin, or I don't want to use egg whites, or I don't want to use, whatever else. I want to be natural, man. Natural.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, you can do that. So let's just say, you don't want to use quote unquote chemicals. You can rack, and maybe in like 2 years, you've got this thing totally clear. But you might have racked it like 6 times and taken like 6 chances of having something go sideways on you, versus like saying you can just drop a finning agent or fining agent in there, and have it be just done, crystal clear most of the time, ready to go, and move on. I typically go the third way, which is if it's a little hazy, I don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't bother me a little hazy or something like that. So, it's up to you. But I would just consider all those options of, did you rack, take a lot of chances, use the fining agent, boom, you're one and done. Or if you don't even want to worry about that, you just, you can bottle it with a little haze as long as it's got the gravity that you need. Again, listen to the top of the episode, the gravity that you need, and you won't end up with the Mentos in the Coke bottle like Ryan did.
Yeah, the other part of this, I'm rereading this, he's talking about a blueberry mead here. And I'm wondering how dark this thing might get, Jeff. And maybe, is it really going to be that important, I wonder? I'm not quite sure how clear he wants it to be, but, there's going to be some darkness to a blueberry mead, I would think, if he, left, during the fermentation and everything.
Sure. Well, it ultimately depends on how much blueberry content he's put into it in the first place.
Sure.
And the more blueberry you put in there, the more pectin you might need. So maybe that could be part of the issue. But I've also had some, I did a blueberry session that came out basically pink because I only had like a pound and a half of fruit on a gallon. So there is a kind of wide range, but yeah, if he's got quite a bit of fruit in there, then it's going to be a little bit dark. It may not matter much.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. And then, like Ryan says, here's the other thing. We've talked about this on the show too, guys. Who you making the mead for? If you're making it for someone else, that's one thing. But I think, for the most part, most of us here at the Mead House, even our listeners, they're making mead for themselves and their families to drink. And I'm not sure that would be a real important factor at that point. I don't care if my mead is hazy or not, if it tastes good. I'm the same with my braggots. I really don't give a damn about clarity at this point. Kind of beyond that. At first, when I first started out, I thought, I guess it's, I don't know if it's drilled into you, but I mean, you're always hearing about clearing, rack. Well, I guess when it gets down to it, and I think Ryan was probably the first one to bring it up on the show. What are we doing here, guys? I mean, so what if it's hazy? If it tastes good, drink it, I mean, isn't that the bottom line here?
Yeah. Well, and honestly, like when I was first starting out, this might be owing more to kind of sketchy processes than anything else, but I swear my mead was tastier when it was still hazy than after it had set for a few months and finally cleared. I thought it tasted better.
Well, I mean, let's say you're going to set pouring a glass on the Thanksgiving dinner table or Christmas dinner table, or presented at some wedding rehearsal dinner or something. That's one thing, I guess. But Ryan, for the most part, I think we make meads and beers and braggots for us to drink, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly. Know your audience. Know who you're making it for, and do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is another, I guess you can call it an alternative consideration, for folks out there who are worried about their meads or their braggots or their beers or whatever not clearing. Like Ryan says, know your audience. Who you making it for in the first place? I mean, if you're hung up on the clarity thing, then by all means pursue what Jeff suggested, using the clarifiers that are readily available on the market out there. Gelatin certainly works. I've used that before. The racking thing works to a degree. But if you're not concerned about that, and if it tastes good, then you know what? Bottle it up, keg it up, and drink the stuff, dude. I mean, what the heck? Let's move on here a little bit. Adding sugar to bulk up a mead. That's kind of adding sugar to bulk up a mead. I started a gallon of mead using only 400 grams of honey and have learnt that this is a lot less than needed for my required ABV. Gosh, I wish you would have put the ABV in there. What is the option on adding 500 grams or so of sugar to the solution? Well, if you want to stay with the mead thing here, don't add any sugar, add more honey. I don't know. I wish I'd have known what his required. I don't know. Have you guys ever had a required ABV?
I've had a planned ABV.
I've got a Target ABV.
Target, required ABV. It's like, when I buy bourbon, I have a required ABV. It has to be 100 proof. Anyway, so adding sugar to bulk up a mead, I would advise against that. I mean, I'm kind of a stickler on, if you're going to add something other than honey, it's not a mead anymore. It's something else. Unless it fits into a style in the BJCP logbook. But Ryan, I mean, to me, this is a simple solution. Add honey, not sugar.
Right. This is an interesting one. There was a guy on a lot of the forums a few years ago, and I think I forget the guy's name, but he was very, very, very active on all the forums, and that's what he was saying he did. Just would he'd add like half, like a Ryan braggot, but half honey, half sugar. And, again, he was saying it got it taken off a lot faster. I get this taken off so fast, and I can get it done so fast. And I don't, you think back, and maybe it wasn't as big back 5 years ago or something, 6 years ago. I don't know when that was, but he wasn't following, like the Tasna or, the best practices, to get a good mead quickly.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was like dumping, I don't know, 5 pounds of honey and 5 pounds of sugar and going from there. And he said, oh yeah, because the sugar obviously would take off right away. And so, people, and so anyway, where I'm going with that is that there's a lot of bad information out there, or maybe not even bad, maybe outdated information, or not best practice information out there.
Yeah.
And it perpetuates. It keeps going around and around. So I would say that you don't need to necessarily, think about. You don't necessarily need to think just about what you find out there as what you should do, but thinking about what newer information has come around. So sorry, I'm kind of fumbling through this a little bit, trying to find the best way to articulate it. But the point is that if you're spending any time online or in the forums, you're probably gonna come across some interesting advice. I mean.
Yeah.
Probably a whole bunch on raisins, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but do more research and find out, and we'll go from there. You'll find those the best ways to do it. Like JD said, there's no reason that you need to add sugar.
Jeff, I don't know what more you could add to that, but go ahead.
Here's my question. What do you want to make? Are you looking for mead? Are you looking for hooch? We're talking about a target ABV, and we're talking about trying to meet that by essentially, adding a cheaper or more readily available sugar source to that. You could do that, sure, and I think the question you want to ask yourself is, what are you hoping to get out of it? Because it's not going to taste like honey. Because if you want it to taste like honey, you add honey. You can get kind of a weird winey, cidery flavor from fermenting table sugar. That might be acceptable to you. It might not. If you're just looking for the alcohol content, yeah, you could go for that. I wouldn't suggest it, but you could go for that. And that's kind of my take on it. I would just figure out how to get another half a kilo of honey and call it good.
Yeah, I'm still stuck on the required ABV. It's like I almost think like he's brewing lawnmower gas or something. Like, what is the required ABV anyway? I want to know.
I'm not going to put it down my trap.
Okay, so this next one is pretty good. Go ahead.
I just said anything under that required ABV is a waste of my time.
Yeah, I don't think I have a requirement. As long as it tastes good, and well, we'll leave that right there. Anyway, so barrel aged honey. Now, I gotta tell you this before we get into this. Okay, a long time ago. Okay, over a year ago. Okay, I bought this canister, this jug of maple syrup, honest to God, real maple syrup at Costco. And I came home and I put it in a half-gallon mason jar, full of, almost full of toasted American oak cubes. And I poured the whole amount fit in this half-gallon jug. And I left it. I put the lid on and left it, and I put it up on a shelf, and I forgot about it. Okay, this was over a year ago. Okay, I just recently ran across it, and I thought, "What's this?" And I stuck my finger in it and licked it, and I'll be damned, this is maple syrup. And so I got into the cupboard and I got the Mrs. Butterworth, which is like a quarter full. I dumped it out and I poured this maple syrup, in this mason jar into it. And when we've been eating that on waffles here for the last couple of weeks. My God, is it so freaking good? Oh my God. Anyway, so if you want to try that, do it because it definitely works. Barrel aged honey. Bear Honey sells honey that's been aged in an apple brandy barrel. Oh, that sounds really good. And I was thinking about picking up a jar to use in a beer. I was thinking it might go well in an imperial porter or stout. Does anyone have any an experience using something like this in beer? Ryan, I mean, flavored honey in a beer, especially in a porter or a stout, I'm not sure that's going to go anywhere. Do you think?
Yeah, so Bear Honey, they were sponsors of the Iron V1, by the way. So thank you to Bear Honey for that. And okay, so barrel aging honey doesn't. It's interesting on its own. It doesn't do much. I've had honey that has just sat like in an oak barrel, and I didn't taste anything different really in it.
No.
Now, what's interesting here is when I have had some that was aged in like a tequila barrel, and then it had a little character. So I think the folks at Bear are pretty smart people, and they're onto something if they're saying, hey, it was aged in an apple brandy barrel, and not just, here's an oak barrel we came across. So I think you probably get some good character out of that. Okay. Now, I'm going to put this in the same category that I get when people come across like Mike's Hot Honey, or, you can find the stuff like these flavored honeys, at different specialty food stores.
Yeah.
And I think one's called Mike's Hot Honey, and it's like, it's a spicy honey, and isn't, and that they always talk about that. Oh, I'm going to buy some of this hot honey and I'm going to put it in a mead. Isn't that awesome? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, let's think about that. Let's just deconstruct what that is. That hot honey is just honey with spice in it. So let's just say chili powder or something, or chilies or something. Instead of letting the Mike or the good folks at Mike's decide, what blend that is, I'd rather deconstruct that and decide how much honey I want to use, and then add in my own, chilies or whatever I'm going to do there on my own, and to get the right proportions and heat that I want.
Yeah.
So I would say the same thing here. The Bear Honey, great honey. I mean, just buy their regular honey. Buy their, they've got some different varietals. And then if you want to add apple flavor and barrel flavor and brandy flavor, okay, then add in oak cubes or oak chips and spirals to get the oak you want. Add in apple, apples juice or cider or something to get to the amount of apple you kind of want. Maybe if you want that in there, go buy a bottle of E&J or something, and add that till you want to. So I think that the point is, what I'm trying to get at here is when somebody starts talking about this, and when you're talking about complex flavor combinations, the best way is deconstruct it down to their most basic parts. Deconstruct it down to their most basic parts, and then add them one by one until you get exactly what you want. Versus first, you're going to pay a premium for this honey, I'm sure, because it's a premium honey. No, it's been in a special barrel and that kind of thing, right? And you are not going to be able to control any of the proportions that are in it. And so that's a pricey proposition you're proposing there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll just stop there.
Jeff, along with the maple syrup thing that I did, I also did some honey, the same fashion. And again, this is the jars are still up on the top shelf of a kitchen cabinet. They've been up there for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Every once in a while, I get them down and taste them. Still taste like wildflower honey. Do they have any wood flavor to it? Not really. So
Yeah.
I'm not so sure aging honey in a barrel or on wood actually does anything. Can you tell us why that might be?
Well,
Or your best
so
guess?
so here's the thing: the difference between like an alcohol or a water based liquid and a honey, to my way of thinking, is like the hydrophilic nature of honey. Um, if you have alcohol you're putting in a barrel, that alcohol is kind of seeping into all the surface, like the surface area of the inside of that barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it'll absorb and um, there will be an interchange of the flavors as that soaks.
Right.
Honey is very hydrophilic in that it's essentially, in order to make it, the bees purposefully extract so much moisture, so much water that it actually will like vacuum suck up water given the opportunity to do so. Which is that's what makes it antimicrobial, antibiotic, whatever. Because if anything, like a yeast, bacteria, something like that lands on it or tries to inoculate it, the honey will actually suck the water out of it and kill it. Um,
Hmm.
my way of thinking is there probably isn't as much that honey can get out of that without being able to soak into the wood as easily. They may get a little bit of the surface area, the inside of that barrel. There may be a little bit of that apple brandy still hanging out on the wood, but beyond that, I don't think it's going to be as effective. I just don't think there's enough like viscosity to mix in and properly soak. Now that said, I am willing to bet that if they're marketing it as an apple brandy barrel aged honey, there has to be some kind of discernible flavor there.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm kind of in Ryan's boat where this is a premium honey. You're paying extra for it. It's probably not a varietal honey at that. It's probably like a wildflower or clover that they've just put in a barrel for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if you're going to use that in a beer, and I don't know if you guys remember, for a while back now, I had a stout that was aged in apple brandy barrels. That was really interesting.
Yep.
So I'm 100% behind that idea. That sounds like a great idea, but I would use it more for back sweetening than anything else. Stabilize that, add a little bit of that barrel aged honey for a back sweetening note, so you're getting that full flavor, and then carve it up or whatever you want to do and call it good there. I wouldn't put that in as fermentable and risk losing any of that flavor, because a little goes a long way with back sweetening honey.
Yeah, again, I can only point to my own little experiment here. I still got sitting in the kitchen cabinet. It's a couple of years old. Probably a couple of years old, I guess. And the honey, like I say, it still tastes like just regular old wildflower honey. I mean, there's no, and believe me,
Yeah.
the mason jar is full of wood chips. Not chips, but cubes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, there is literally no wood taste at all. I mean, it tastes like wildflower honey. So I'm not convinced that you can age honey in a barrel. The apple brandy, if you had a 53-gallon barrel, formerly used, if it was a wet barrel and you dumped 53 gallons of honey in it, and you took it back out a month later, yeah, it may taste like an apple brandy honey. But to me, that's not aging honey in a barrel. That's just putting honey in there, gathering up all the leftover flavors from the barrel, and then dumping it out into jars and putting it out on the market. Now, I don't know if that's what the process is. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, at this point we're speculating, but
yeah, but I mean, that's, I got to go with Ryan. I mean, break it down. If you're looking for flavors, and you find something on the store shelf that's got all these different flavors in it, then break it down and do each individual at a time. That way you have control over it. The last thing you want to do is spend a lot of money on a particular honey that boasts these flavors, and you get it in your ferment and get it in a bottle and then discover that it doesn't taste like that at all. I mean, and honey prices aren't getting any cheaper. So
No.
that's my take on it. So, all right, mango mead needs desludging help. I guess it reads mango mead needs desludging help. First post here. Thought I could get some advice because it's a bit of an esoteric situation. I'm making a mango mead or melomel or what have you. Here's the recipe. Roughly 3.5 pounds of honey, 2 cans of diced mango with syrup, no preservatives, a package of frozen mango pulp, a shake of I love this. A shake of peptic and exactly how much is a shake? Pectic enzyme and water enough water to reach 3/4 of a gallon total liquid. So mango mead needs desludging. First of all,
well, JD, there's more to the.
Yeah, there's a lot more.
Oh, is there? I'm playing it very fast and loose with this recipe because I didn't really expect much, and it's very syrupy at this stage. Oh God! Due to the high sugar content, I let it ferment in a bucket for a week, and it's been in a carboy for the last 4 days.
Then he's got more.
Yeah, then he's got more. The problem, the pulp is unstrainable. I kind of knew that. It's pure mango fiber. Knew that too. I started straining with my ultrafine C. It's probably a bad move there. While transferring from my fermentation bucket to my carboy, the liquid just sat on it. I swapped to a less finer strainer. Same issue. Yeah, no kidding. I practically had to use a colander at this point to get some. So his filter is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we've gone from a fine strain to a medium strain. Now we're down to the kitchen colander. Same issue. And got some of the pulp out of the wine, but the result was no less pulpy. It's also not settling to the bottom at all. I just tried a tiny bit. It's basically watery jam. You could eat it with a spoon. Yeah, I'll bet. It's fermenting great so far, and it's turned a nicely sour somehow, but I don't know. I don't want to bottle it as a chunky mead. God. I got to go back up to the top here to the recipe. Okay, first of all, the frozen mango pulp, never should have added that. Never should have added that. The diced mango is okay, but the mango pulp, Ryan, I would never have put the pulp in there at all, ever. I think that's why he can't get it through the kitchen colander.
Yeah, right. He also is. If you run through this, 3.5 pounds of honey, 2 cans of mango with the syrup. And he said only enough water to reach 3/4 of a gallon total liquid. So this is a lot of stuff going on here.
This is ambitious.
There's a lot of, there's a lot. I mean, I'm frankly surprised that he said the fermentation was going well so far. With how much sugar he's got in this thing. I thought the yeast might, have a little trouble with that. Now, he said it's been in a bucket for a week and a carboy for 4 days. So we're talking, a week and a half. I mean, we're 11 days into this thing. 11 days.
Yeah.
What are we sounding the alarm bells for in 11 days?
Mm-hmm. I keep reading through this over and over. You know what I would do? I'd take the bucket out to the pig trough and just feed the pigs with it. If you're on a farm, now your pigs might stumble around for a little bit for a couple of days, and then I'd start over and leave the frozen mango pulp out. The 2 cans of diced mango, I'm okay with that actually. I would probably have drained it, though, and done without the syrup. But if you're looking for that mango flavor, And if you really wanted to do it right, Amaretti, go to Amaretti.com. They've got tons of different kinds of flavors. I know they have mango flavor there, concentrates. I've done mango stuff before, and, like pumpkin. It leaves a pile of crap at the bottom of the fermenter, like you won't believe, Jeff.
Yeah. No, and I kind of look at it like the puree from the cans of puree you see at the homebrew store. You can do that. It might not be the best idea. I'm kind of in that. I don't know if I would scrap this entirely at this point, but I wouldn't have really huge expectations. I mean, at this point, there's no harm in letting it go. I would say, hey, just if all you get is, a couple bottles, maybe, just let it sit for a while, see if it clears on its own. Maybe throw some bentonite or some gelatin or some dual fine or whatever on it, and see if you can get a decent cake of crud at the bottom. You can get a bottle or two off of. With this quantity and that much fermentables, I can see why it's syrupy. So, I would, try that, see what you can salvage from it, but otherwise just chalk this up as a learning experience,
Yeah, invest in a couple of books too. There's some great, terrific mead making books out there. Papazian's got one, I think. What's the other one, Ryan? Gosh, come on.
Well, Papazian's got a good one.
Ken Schramm has
Ken Schramm. Ken Schramm.
Steve Piatz.
Steve Piatz.
Thank you.
There you go. Yeah,
invest. And I think there's a handful of them. Sorry, top of my head here.
Yeah, invest in some books. Yeah, Kurt Stock. He has another good one. Invest in some books, okay? And I'm sure in one of those books that we mentioned, okay, you can just go to Google and type in, or just go to Amazon.com and mead making books, and I'm sure it'll come up with a bunch of them. But I'm sure you'll be able to find something in there talking about using mangoes, so invest in some books first, read, and do a little bit of homework, talk to people like the folks here at the Mead House, like we're doing tonight. Before you get started, we'd be more than welcome to help anybody out there who's got an issue or wants to get started or whatever, and not quite sure how to approach it. But this is a lesson that I learned early on. I jumped in it with both feet that I shouldn't have. I should have sought out some help first, and should have read up a little bit more. It's not as easy as it seems to begin with. It does get easier as you go. But, to think that you're just going to mix honey and water in a bucket with some yeast and then come out with a really nice tasting wine has a lot to be desired. So you kind of got to know what you're doing there. A lot of things at stake, that you're not thinking about, that you will think about if you read up on the hobby, and learn some recipes, look at what other people are doing. Listen to other shows, go to YouTube, Google. Do your homework and start there first. That's my best advice on this one, guys. Let's see. Good and creative. Let's see, we done with that one? Oh, yeah. Okay, good and creative candy sugar alternatives in Belgian beers. Ryan, I'm going to throw this one your way. I read recently of people using honey in a Belgian style. Gee, didn't we just talk about this at the top of the show? What's Ryan drinking tonight? So, good and creative candy sugar alternatives in Belgian beers. I've read recently of people using honey in Belgian style brews instead of candy sugar. I really wanted to read more about the sugar alternatives to candy sugar, but I can't find much on Google. you came to the right place. Just thought I'd see if you have ever experimented with something mad or interesting for sugar in a Belgian. Ryan, this is right up your alley, guy.
Amen.
Yeah. So it depends what you're making and the type of candy sugar that you want to make, that you're using. So, for example, I have made this is the Belgian that I'm drinking right now, and I actually need to reload. So let you guys ramble for a while.
Go ahead,
But
pop the top.
yeah, is you can use straight, just regular, I would say raw honey, just straight raw honey. No need to do anything to it. If you want to use, this is now what I found, by the way. You use your wildflower, your clover, your orange blossom, any of those nice little lighter honeys. When you get into the candy sugars, say that are a little more character driven, so say now you're making a double, and you need something that's got a little color on it, not all the way and super intense. What I've found is that you can use some of the naturally darker honeys that can provide a really nice little flavor burst there. So avocado, I like even buckwheat in a double is really nice, really fun. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Oh my gosh. That snuck up on me. And then if you start getting into those really dark ones, like the quads or those really dark Belgians that call for those super caramelized or super dark candy, then I've used bochet honey. So honey that's been caramelized and is and I've done that. I made a Belgian quad with a bochet honey, and I thought it was fantastic. I've done that twice. Really, really, really liked it. So, depending on what you're making, if you're making like just a Belgian beer that calls for kind of like clear candy syrup, essentially, I mean, you can just use your orange blossom, no problem, or clover or whatever. Calling for something like a double, that a little more character, again, use something maybe like an avocado or a buckwheat or something that's got a little more punch, a little bolder honey. And then lastly, if you're doing something that calls for a very dark candy sugar, go with the bochet, and you'll maintain kind of the style. The beer style will not be significantly altered because you're kind of maintaining that level, but it will really give it a unique dimension, and it's something that I've done quite a bit and really enjoy.
There you go. Jeff, I think we went right to the expert on it. Do you think?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I don't have anything better to add than Ryan's already contributed.
No, I'm good. I'm good right there. So let's go move on to the next one here. Why won't my braggot barley wine dry out? I made a 10 liter of wort and a grain father. I've been looking at those things really hard, but I don't know that I want to go that route. But anyway, 10 liters of wort on a grain father with just first runnings and okay, I got to slow down here. Why won't my braggot barley wine dry out? I made 10 liters of wort on a grain father with just first runnings and I guess a kilogram of honey. I guess I'm assuming
right.
There.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
After the whirlpool. Okay, I get that. All right, my OG was 1120. I aerated with O2 for a minute and pitched a 1 liter starter of American Ale blend and Belgian triple. After about 6 weeks, the gravity was 1040. So I racked it and added EC 1118. It has been about 3 months now, and the gravity, why would he do that? Anyway, I'll come back to that. It's been about 3 months now, and the gravity is 1034. Any suggestions as to why this will not ferment further or what can I do to get this to finish lower? I added dried wild cherries, so there is sufficient tartness to balance the sugars, but I don't want to bottle too early either. I don't know why would he add the 1118. I mean, it sounds like he's got a pretty good little yeast blend going there to start with. Ryan, why the 1118 or Jeff, either one?
Well, I know that there's this idea of sequential yeast pitch where, for example, somebody pitches a Belgian strain of yeast to get that particular, yeast ester yeast character, and then they try to pitch something like this champagne yeast to clean it out and get the alcohol content up too.
Okay.
I think that's what they're trying to go for here. But half of their initial pitch was an American ale yeast, which is pretty clean.
Yeah.
And EC 1118, you do that at a good temperature, that's pretty clean too. So that part doesn't make as much sense to me.
And he started out at 11:20 and he finished up at 10:34.
Mm-hmm.
That's to
You know,
me,
sometimes
that's a
the guys that
significant.
make
Go ahead.
sometimes the guys that make those really really big beers, they start out with their beer yeast, and then when their beer yeast stalls out, they back it up with the 1118 to get a little higher. To boost up that ABV. So it's possible he was following a protocol like that, like saying, hey, get everything you can out of a beer yeast, will give you the best character. And then from there, you'll need to
Finish
it off with like a champagne yeast just to get you all the way home. I've seen, and I don't know how old school. Again, we're talking about some old school, advice, but I don't know how old school that is. But it definitely, was fairly common out there as a internet advice.
I'm only thinking that maybe he could have started at a lower OG, but on the second hand, I'm gonna see what his. Now that I, listen to you and Jeff, I see what his methodology here is. I understand that now. But
it occurs to me the thing he doesn't mention is his nutrients and whether or not he added any. Granted, we don't have a lot of honey being added here, and generally, even a kind of big beer, you don't necessarily need to put a ton of nutrient into. But with that high of an OG, I would think you need to supplement the nutrient for the yeast to really clean it out the way it has. It might just be starved for nutrient at this rate and kind of, going with whatever it can find. The other thing that occurs to me is that with most of these being first runnings, he doesn't really say like what kind of temperature he mashed at or anything like that. There could be an amount of like unfermentable sugars from a high mash temp or something like that at work here too, possibly. I wouldn't think it'd be that high, but I don't know. I'm spitballing.
Yeah, I'm a little stuck on this one. I just keep going back to the 1120 OG. Maybe you could have started a little bit lower, but you're looking for a drier beer. I get the 1118 thing, but I mean, if it's not going any further, to me, simple things here means that there's just no more sugar left. There's nothing left to ferment. So if it's not going to drop below 1034, then I guess it's done, right? So if you want it to go any further, and you're just looking for an ABV increase, then pop in a little bit of, this whole thing, this whole thing about step feeding your honey too. I've done that before. Even in the braggots. Instead of dumping it all in at once, step feed your honey. Especially if you're working on a project like this. Now this is starting to make more sense. Okay, I think with that kilogram of honey, I think I would have step fed it in. Okay, and saved the last bit for the 1118 if I wanted to push that ABV up another notch. I think that may be how I would have approached it, because it sounds like he might have dumped the honey in all at once, probably up front. And to me, I think I would probably have step fed it along the way. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, that seems like a good approach to it, especially if you're going for something that is going to be high ABV and drier.
Yeah.
Kind of letting the honey take its time with it, so to speak, seems like a good approach.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, all right, let's do this. So we're going to wrap it with this last one. What to do with old beer? Who the hell has old beer? Ryan, do you have any old beer at your house?
No.
Jeff, you got old beer at your house?
I barely got new beer at my house.
No, I can't even keep new beer at my house, especially with the neighbors I got. Hey, what to do with old beer? What's up, guys? I've been brewing wine and mead for a few months now as COVID pastime, and am loving it so far. Now, am more of a part-time. My more part-time day job is managing a venue space with 2 bars. So how lucky you are. With everything severely slowed down, I've ended up with a few cases of beer that are now expired. It's not good stuff that's worth taking home and drinking. It's mostly, really? Bud Light, Mitch, Ultra, Coors. Oh, are you kidding me? Light type water beers. I'm a PBR kind of guy. I dig you there. Not looking to fight, but I just don't like those beers much. Hey, no, I'm with you, dude. It's not beer, for one. What to do with old beer, guys? What do you do with old beer?
Well, he's got quite a bit more in there. You want me to keep reading it for you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, because so I've been reading about braggots made by mixing mead with beer or brewing mead with hops. But most of this stuff is a few months past, so the flavor is flat and probably wouldn't add anything to a good mead. So that's, you don't want to add, bad beer to good mead. I've been wondering if anyone has done anything along the lines of re-fermenting old beer with sugar or honey and new yeast. I started a 30 rack of Bud Light with water, honey, and a few spices on January 25th, but couldn't get an OG reading due to the carbonation, even after boiling and settling for a day. Oh boy. Jeez. I tried it a few days ago, and it was really bad.
We got to get him on the show.
But I think that was due to too much maple flavoring.
I added water, sugar, and some nutrients, and it's much better now. I think it would almost pass it. I think it would almost pass it off for a regular beer as it is right now. We'll see how it is in a few weeks after fermentation wraps up. I've never messed with beer. Oh my god, I can't even finish this.
Bottle fermentation.
Oh my god!
Is there a handy guide somewhere for achieving carbonation of random content without creating bottle bombs? I gotta read that over. Sorry.
Oh god!
I've never messed with beer or bottle fermentation. Is there a handy guide somewhere for achieving carbonation of random hooch without creating bottle bombs? It's probably out in the open and I missed it. I think this batch will probably finish tasting like beer, so I think it'd benefit from beery carbonation. Has anyone here done anything crazy like this before? I mean, I can't sell it as it is.
Oh my god.
So I'll probably keep experimenting myself, if nothing else. I've got nothing to lose except time, money, food. But if there's a right way to more predictively achieve a worthwhile final product, I'd be interested in hearing it.
Oh,
Any advice is greatly appreciated.
We need to find out who this guy is, Ryan, and get him on the show.
Oh my god!
It seems like a lot of effort to get beer when you started with beer.
And
So-
we're like at the end of the show here. So, okay, all right, let's fix this thing. So, what do you do with old beer, dude?
All right. So
Let's start.
let's just set aside, for example, common sense, and let's just look at this from an experimental point of view. Not should you, but could you?
There you go.
Could you open up, a case of Bud Light, a case of Mick Ultra, and a case of Coors Light, and dump it all into a big bucket and stir in add some honey, stir it up, toss some yeast on there, and a yeast pack on there, and create a braggot. Again, not saying should you, saying could you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you could, but let's say what you'd want to do there. You'd want to first knock out all the carbonation, so you'd want to let that beer kind of go flat as much as you could. When you let the beer go flat, you're also kind of going to probably create some, you're oxidizing the beer basically. But I mean, it'll ferment a lot better. So, I don't know the best way to do that, but you'd want to basically suck out the carbonation without trying to. I mean, I guess you just want to put it under an airlock right away and kind of let it go flat under an airlock, something like that, and add the honey, and then throw you want a yeast that's got some power behind it, that can kick that up. But I think you could do that. And then he's saying, okay, now we're talking like, again, I got some bad product here. What do I do? And he threw in maple syrup flavoring. Earlier, we were talking about, okay, just dry hop it. Just dry hop the hell out of it. Might salvage the flavor. Yeah, I suppose you could do that. I'm not even going to I'm not even going to touch should. Just don't even ask me should. I'm not even going to talk about should. I'm just talking about could. And I suppose you could do that, and you could end up with a braggot that way. Jeff, what do you think?
I'm going to take a very different approach here. I'm not going to suggest re-fermenting, but last year there were a number of breweries that had a bunch of kegs that were getting old, not quite up to that level of freshness that they were looking for. I cannot for the life of me remember who it was, but one of the local breweries actually did a collaboration with a distillery. They took some old kegs, sent them to the distillery. The distillery made a whiskey.
Wow.
And so they had a very they turned something that was going to go bad and old into a very special edition kind of a product. That being said, you could go to your local homebrew store and you could ask them if any of their customers are shiners. You would have to assure probably the person working there and anybody that they were going to refer you to, especially, that no, you're not with the TTB or whoever, the ATF. You just want to get something out of this.
Yeah.
You could take that approach.
I gotta tell you, as a producer of the show, I read ahead on the notes, and I knew this guy. I know the show's running long here. I mean, we're like way long. But as I was reading ahead on the show notes, I thought, we cannot quit this show without doing this one. I don't have anything to add, guys, to this one. I just want to meet this guy. So, over the next couple of weeks, let's do what we can to see if we can't get in touch with this guy, send him an email or contact him somehow. I want this guy on the show because I want to hear about what happened. Okay. I want to hear what he actually did in the end. This is a cool guy right here. So I'm anxious to speak to him. Anyway, hey, we're going to drop it right here. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us here in this episode number 199. And if you want to get on the show, It's pretty simple. All you got to do is just email us at info@themeadhouse.com or send us a message on that old Facebook deal. Twitter is the tweeter thing, too, at the Mead House. And we'll set up a date and get you on and talk about your brewing project or whatever you want to talk about. But in the meantime, say happy mead making. And that's it for this episode. Ryan, you know what? Before I do that, hey, don't forget, we're going to be on the road for the next... my wife and I are taking off... When are we leaving? Next Tuesday, I think. And we're going to be gone for a month, taking the show on the road. It may be a hit or miss. Will we be able to get all of them? But I know one in particular. We're going to be broadcasting from Sap House Meadery in New Hampshire towards the end of our 6-week deal here. So near the end of this run, we'll be broadcasting from, not live, but we'll be recording the podcast from Sap House Meadery. So that'll be a lot of fun. In between, it's going to be a hit or miss. I don't know what time we're going to be able to get into hotels and whatnot along the way. Hopefully Jeff and Ryan are coming up with an alternative here to at least produce the show and get it out there. And I'll have at least some way to be able to edit the show and get it posted if we can do that. But if not, hey, stick with us. You know we're not going to leave you behind. At any rate, hey, Ryan, if you want to flip the lights off, Jeff slammed the door shut. Hey, we'll be back again sometime soon with the next show. Hopefully it's going to be episode 200. 200 shows, guys. But we'll see you then. We're gone.